standout feature of the Canyon Strive is the Shapeshifter, which aims to switch the bike from the optimal climber to the optimal descender and back. But it's also a polarizing feature, and how you feel about the Shapeshifter is kinda how you feel about the Strive. So we took it to Park City, Utah to see if we could have a civil debate about it.
This is a unique bike, a unique new bike.
It's true. Well, there's 3 bikes really like out there, 3 companies that do the like flippy switch, adjusty geometry model, right?
Yeah, there's the Canyon Strive, there's the Cannondale Jekyll and the Jekyll 27.5, Jekyll 29, and
Scott.
and then every single Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what sets the Canyon Strive apart from those bikes is that the remote control rear shock adjustment doesn't control the shock.
Right.
It controls the geometry, it controls the leverage curve, the rear travel via the Shapeshifter. It's this extra little gas can that extends or contracts depending on what you do with your thumb and your body.
Yeah, and it changes the location of the upper shock mount, basically, right?
Yeah.
To change the leverage curve.
Yeah.
And to get it to change, you have to actually, say you're in slack, which they call clack, weirdly enough, and you want to get into the steep mode, which they call click. You have to press the remote lever, and then you have to sort of shift your weight forward, which allows it to move the linkage and shift that shock a little bit. So.
Yeah, and it's not very intuitive to do that on a climb because your weight is naturally to the back. So you do have to very consciously kind of pop your weight up and get the weight off the back.
So getting it from the steep climbing mode into the slacker mode also requires like even more of a concerted effort. Like it's like you have to really preload the bike, and because you're pushing the link kind of inwards, and the Shapeshifter link, you're kind of pushing that inwards, and it really requires a concerted effort to do that. They've improved it, like they've iterated it over the years, and now you used to be able to have to like hold the lever down and time that, and now you just push the button and then do the motion whenever you kind of get around to it. But it is like a really concerted motion that like interrupts your pedaling cycle or whatever. Like it's something that's not just like a click of the button.
And that's what separates it from Cannondale's system and Scott's system.
Correct.
Because those really, there's nothing you do with your body, you just put it in one mode or the other.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because those 2 other bikes use proprietary shocks. So like you're switching something inside the shock, not on the bike. And so one of the real advantages to this bike is that you're using a normal shock. It's not proprietary. You can put whatever you want on there technically, right? Like you don't have to go through the company to get a replacement. You can go through the shock manufacturer. It's much simpler, right?
And the disadvantage specifically to the Cannondale is their system really just shrinks the air can. So it makes it really progressive, and you have less travel, and it's really supportive, but kind of makes it into a pogo stick.
Yeah.
The disadvantage with the Scott is, like you say, you're really limited on shock choice. You're essentially getting a really souped up Fox Float DPS.
Yeah.
You don't get anything with a piggyback, whereas this one you can get a little bit more advanced shock on the Strive.
Right. I
did really feel the disadvantage of having to sort of interrupt my pedal cadence to get from one mode to the other. I'm someone who like really values a clean cockpit. And so for me, to have some sort of like bar mounted suspension adjustment, I really need it to sort of prove its merits in order to justify that extra cabling and just the mess, basically.
It also moves your dropper thumb lever a little lower and out of the way.
Yeah, although this system is pretty good at like managing that.
Yeah, I do like the ergonomics of that lever, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't really it doesn't seem like it pulls its weight. Like,
yeah.
What I really like about the Scott is that it's so quick and easy. I ended up, when I was riding the Ransom, I ended up using that lever way more than I thought I would, and it's a 3 position, so like the mid position is really excellent sort of pedal position, but then when you want to go like to full, heavy hardtail mode on roads and stuff, you can use that,
Yeah.
And with this one, I thought that like the 2 positions weren't sort of sufficient. Like even in the climbing mode, it's not doing anything to the shock. And so you can still reach down, way down by the bottom bracket and grab the low speed compression adjuster on the shock and flip that from one to the other. So like, but it's like, if it's gonna have a handlebar mount, it should take care of it all on the bar, right?
Yeah, and it was the sort of thing where, if I'm going up a climb that's like intermittently technical and smooth, the weight shifts required to get this to change modes were enough to keep me from like flipping back and forth for, you know, a 50-foot section of smooth trail.
Yeah, you're not going to use it all the time like you would on other
Yeah,
bikes that make it easier.
It's not seamless enough for that.
And I don't necessarily think that that's maybe what it's aimed at. Even if it is aimed at, it misses. What it, I think, is for is somebody like me who has big long climbs for a half hour, an hour, hour and a half, and they want to be in that optimal geo position, have optimal suspension for it, and they're just going to deal with the pain to go back and forth because I'm only doing it 6, 7, 8 times a ride.
Totally.
So and so let's talk about when you are in that climbing mode. So it shortens the rear travel and makes it more progressive. And what I liked about that is that I was really trying to hammer a little bit when I was testing it, and it gave me that feeling of almost like an XC bike, support and quickness.
Yeah,
and
it really improves the acceleration. Like it, I mean, it is 2 different bikes.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I sort of struggled with when we're talking about geo on this bike is that you're starting with a really slack C-tube angle. It's what, 73.5 degrees in the slack setting. So it feels to me a lot like a Band-Aid for something that they should have addressed like sort of at the baseline geometry. The C-tube angle should have started at 75 and then gone up to 76.5 or even steeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. All of us are fans of steep C-tube angles. In fact, to the point that maybe if this had a 77 degree seat angle, it might have eliminated the need for the Shapeshifter altogether.
Altogether, right?
Yeah. But again, going back to the way that I liked to pedal it, I did enjoy having that extra firm, quick get up and go feeling on a 150 mil 29er.
Yeah.
But I fixed it a little bit by slamming my seat forward. We also agree that you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, I guess that where I struggled with the actual suspension performance in the 2 modes was that outside of the seat tube angle change, the performance of it in the steeper mode didn't feel all that different to me from when I just hit the like blue low speed compression adjust lever.
Yeah, like you said, again, it's not doing enough to make all that technology worth it, like stand out enough to be like, this is something that's keepable. Yeah.
And for me, who kept the lever on my Ransom, I use it all the time. I just like optimizing my climbing feel and performance, no matter the inconvenience it takes to get there. For me, I feel like it was worth it. But I think that if you're somebody who is a little skeptical of this sort of concept, this is not the bike that's going to win you over.
Yeah.
Right. I just feel like, I mean, for the most part, I really liked riding this. I liked climbing on it. I loved descending on it. Once you get it into descending mode, it's like really supple and plush and like ground huggy, but still poppy, and like it feels like a long travel trail bike because it has kind of conservative numbers. It's a little bit short, it's a little bit steep in the head angle, and like compared to other bikes that are sort of in this category. And so it felt like, you know, really maneuverable. I could get it around corners easily, like pick my lines nicely. I actually really liked the ride feel. The geometry was awesome. Like if I had my choice between, you know, this bike, a Cannondale, or a Scott, I would choose the Scott because I think their system works better. But I think that this bike has, you know, as good as, you know, of geometry as the Scott as well. Like it's a really rideable bike.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, the Scott Ransom is too much bike.
Yeah.
This is almost more comparable to the Genius, even though the Strive is what Canyon's EWS team and Flow is on the top of the circuit with this bike. Well, the one with the extra 10 millimeter travel, the team model.
Yeah, the front end feel of this bike kind of sets it apart from our current field of like big travel 29ers, right? For like a 150 rear, 160 front 29er. These days we might expect it to have like a 64 degree head angle. This one's 66. And so it gives it, yeah, a really precise feel that I think makes it unique and probably something that a lot of riders will benefit from. Like if you have more precision-oriented descents, if you aren't like just mobbing through things at maximum pace,
Yeah.
I think it's got a really good feel for that rider.
For sure.
There is more to the Strive than the Shapeshifter. It's got a combination of ground-huggy suspension and precise geometry, and it actually works together. The Strive takes chances and picks sides, besides just the pro-anti-remote control debate. We've got its full written review and the rest of the Bible of Bike Test videos at bikemag.com.